Welcome to Chaos, Courage and Coffee, the podcast for anyone who's felt like on the outside I'm holding it together, but inside I'm struggling.
And we do it with honesty, heart, and just enough coffee to get through the day.
Hello, Vanessa. How are you today?
Hi, Brett. Yeah, I am super good. Thank you.
Oh, that's great. Look, today I wanted to carry on our conversation from the last couple of episodes. And we've been talking about not taking actions on the things that we know we should be doing, or I suppose you could say not following through, maybe, although that can be a little bit different as well. But this week, I thought I'd like to talk about the cost of not doing those things that we know we should do. So, what I mean by that is when we don't do something that we know we should do, there can be a a time cost. Things are delayed, or there might be a mental cost, i.e., the mental load of I know I should do this thing, but I'm not doing this thing. It's that mental pressure that builds up in not doing the thing that we're doing. So I want to talk about the cost of not doing the thing we know we should do.
Okay, it's interesting. It struck me while you were saying it that it's not just the things we know we should do, it's other things, it's things we might want to do. So let's not always put it as the shoulds and the heavy stuff. So I'm thinking, for example, I want to go on a trip, and my daughter went on a trip up north, and I was like, oh, that's so great, I should do that. I haven't. And I still think it's the same thing. So I just wanted to put that out there. It's not just the shoulds, and perhaps some of the things that aren't the shoulds, like the choices, are even more likely to get pushed back. But we should, they're still beneficial to us. Um, when you talk about, so I'm glad you clarified the cost, because I was going to ask you to explain that a bit more, but you explained it and you talked about mental load. I wonder if we can, maybe talk a little bit more about that. Like, what do you mean by that? So that people are understanding a bit more about what we're saying, that there's a cost to it and it's got a mental load. Like, what are you really meaning? Let's kind of dig into that a bit. Is that all right?
Yeah, that's fine. Absolutely. So when I talk about mental load, talk about what we're really referring to is the internal pressure, I suppose, we put on ourselves that we know this thing exists. We might know that there is an action that needs to go with it, like your trip, going up north and doing that trip. You know your daughter's done it. You know that she's, I'm guessing, really enjoyed that trip, and there's lots of really cool things, and she had some really great stories. And maybe today's conversation will prompt you to take that action and plan that trip, do something about it. But having it sitting there in the back of our mind, knowing that it exists and not taking action builds an internal pressure. It becomes a cyclical thought. It's one more thing that's going on in our brain that we don't necessarily need. It's one more, I'm going to use the words mental loop or mental task that is not completed. And that builds or increases that disconnect, I suppose, or that pressure between what we could or should or might do and what we are actually doing. That the gap that we talked about last time between the knowledge and the execution.
I've
I
got
think that's where the pressure comes from.
while you were talking, shall I tell you what it made me think of? So on my phone, and I don't know if everybody's has this, but when I go onto my search, Google, whatever it is, so I've got my tabs, okay, and I've got these certain tabs open, but at the top it's got inactive tabs, and it says tabs not used for 21 days. So it made me think it's like that, right? So the tabs I've got open, they're the things I'm currently thinking about and kind of actioning. And then the ones that have fallen out of that loop that have not been open for 21 days, it's like they're still churning in the background. So that's where the trip would be. It was like, oh yeah, it was a tab at one point when she was doing it and I was thinking about it. It kind of fell off the active tabs and it's now in the inactive tabs. But what you're saying is it's still there, right? And what this means is it's still using up some kind of energy. So, like the tabs that you've got open are always refreshing themselves, which means they're continually just, doing something in the background. That means it's using energy. Or if you want to keep going with the phone analogy, it's still using my battery power. Okay, so when we go on low battery mode, what we're doing is not refreshing those background apps or those background tabs. So, but I don't think we can do that with the human brain. So that means they're always there. We can't go in low power mode, or maybe we can, or maybe that's what we need to try and do. So to me, yeah, when you're talking about mental load, it's like, oh my gosh, they're always there. They're still sitting there. They're still churning away, but I'm oblivious to it because I haven't even opened the inactive tabs.
I agree at 100%. I'm choosing my words carefully here. I really like that you went down your phone or computer analogy because we've used the computer before and we've talked about the tabs we've got open in our browsers. And the phone is exactly the same thing. And I like the inactive tabs. One of the things, yes, the battery, the energy is important, but one of the things we also need to recognize or understand is that when we've got a lot of things going on, especially when we talk about computers and phones, the more things we've got processing at any one time, our phone or computer and brain can only process so much at any one time, and then things start to shut down. And I think this is where we sometimes forget if we've got all these things going on that we're not resolving and closing, then things are going to start shutting down eventually. And that's where I think we start having some problems.
Yeah. Okay. So we've probably cleared up what mental load means. So getting back to the cost, I think that's clear that one of the costs is all of that energy being used and not perhaps quite comprehending that whilst our brains are amazing, we actually only have, they say that we can hold like 5 to 7 bits of information. So bits are going to fall out. And I think mums, we think we can be super mom and we keep thinking we can do all these things. And then we wonder why we've got this overwhelm or overload because it's still going on. Okay. So cost of what were you saying? So the cost of not making the or taking action on the things. Yeah.
Yeah, cost of not making a decision or taking that action, following through and doing the thing that we
Yeah.
want, need, supposed to do.
Yeah. Okay, so that's one of them. What else is the cost of not actually starting to do these things?
Well, I think we've already talked about um, the mental load and that builds pressure over time. Uh, I think there's also missed opportunities. Doing the thing at the right time. You mentioned previously, if we don't pay bills on time, then a really simple one. If we don't pay our electricity on time, then the bill goes up. They add fees and things to it, and if we still don't pay it on time or when it's supposed to be paid, they turn the electricity off. So there's a missed opportunity to keep doing the thing, missed opportunity to save a little bit of money in additional fees because things build up over time. It might be that by taking a particular action, we can identify an advantage somewhere, a further opportunity, a better opportunity to grow a business or grow our podcast or whatever the case may be, but not taking the action or not making the decision to do the thing. I want to highlight is also a decision in itself. It's a decision not to act.
Well, let's come back to that one in a minute. I want to give another concrete example of kind of the taking action and the opportunities. So when I moved here, I decided to get out into the community more. So I'm doing presentations in real life, but I also decided to go into early learning childhood places and schools. And I started going in person because there's only so much a phone call and an email can do. And it was quite interesting because one day I'd been to quite a few, and I was at the point where I was like, I've done enough kind of chat for the day. But there was one more, and it's kind of like, oh, it's kind of on my route home. And I went in, did this one more. I made myself do this one more. But actually, I drove up the drive, and there was a community center, and I actually couldn't find it. And I nearly gave up. And then I found someone to ask, and I went in. And as I got there and I said my piece, the woman said, "Oh my goodness," she said, "my computer is open now. I am trying to find someone just like you doing what you do. And I've spent the morning searching because I'm at my wit's end." And long story short, she became a client, and what's happened for her with her foster child is just amazing. And this can snowball into other things, which I won't go into now, but it is interesting how things happen, and when you start a chain reaction, other things happen. But sometimes you do have to push yourself to actually do those things. So it was, but you never know. I wouldn't have known what I'd missed out on if I hadn't done it. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah, absolutely. And sometimes it's not even the big things. It's not the walking in and going through your spiel or talking to someone. It might just be that little thing that you didn't do, the extra social media post, or the one suggestion that somebody mentions that you don't follow through on. Hey, this could be a good idea, that you don't act on. That can make all the difference. I watch a fair amount of sport, and they talk about the one percenters. It's the 1% of things that we do or don't do that can make a huge impact.
Okay, so now what did I skip over that we wanted to go, that I said, let's go back to that?
Not making a decision is a decision.
That's quite an interesting one, isn't it? So whilst we're sitting there ignoring it or umming and ahhing or working out pros and cons, our decision is not to make progress on it at all.
Yeah.
And that's quite an interesting one because I know quite a lot of people, there's different reasons people don't make a decision. Quite a lot of people don't make a decision because they don't want to make the wrong decision. But your point then is, well, if you're actually doing nothing about it, that is a decision in itself. And is that possibly a wrong decision too? So now you're making a wrong decision by not making a decision.
Exactly. And this is where people get lost, and it becomes its own rabbit hole. The decision not to make a decision is a decision.
Mm.
And that's where people, I'll put that decision off till later, or I'll do that thing later. You've just made a decision to delay something. And so I think it's important for people to understand that particular concept. The decision to delay action is a decision.
And so, what other costs have we got to this? Are there any others?
I think we touched on uh, time. So there can be a time cost. Not acting
Okay. Yeah.
now is a delayed, and that might be relevant in some circumstances. Let's not make a decision now and see how things play out. We can make a more informed or a better informed decision down the track, but that's still a decision made now.
Actually, I'll just interrupt for a minute because that's an interesting one. Is sometimes it's better to not pay too much attention to something and not make a decision and just leave it. And that's a tricky one. You have to be quite discerning when you want to use that one because sometimes it can work to your advantage. Things that you worry about can disappear. So it's actually saves you energy to, I'll worry about that later.
Yes, but we also need to be careful because it can bite us in the back end as well. we should have acted then when we had that information, and now it's too late to act, or things have turned against us. So, yeah, as you say, we need to be very discerning and be very careful in making that decision to act later. But I think we're not really focusing on that aspect of what we're talking about in this short series, I suppose, of topics. We're really focused on the I don't want to deal with it, the burying the head in the sand. I think we've mentioned that before, type of not making a decision.
Yeah.
Uh, the decision not to act in our own best interests. And so we're losing time to do the right thing. We're losing time to keep the electricity on, as I talked about before. We're losing time to make a good decision that has a positive impact on our lives. We've talked about the mental load. We've talked about the increased pressure over time. Um, the one thing I think we haven't really talked about is not making progress, being
Ah.
stuck in the same place and not being able to move forward because we're not making the decision to act and make change or to progress.
Well, that's quite a big one because as humans, we actually like to make progress. So we've already got the mental workload built up. And then this is like a double whammy because then you're not making progress. And this actually has an impact on us. We need to be making progress, even if it's small amounts of progress. So now, yeah, on top of the mental load of it still sitting there, you've got this other factor. I'm not getting anywhere. I'm not making progress. I'm stuck. And it can replay on a loop.
Yeah, absolutely. And that then adds, we've already talked about the mental load. If we're stuck and we're playing this stuck, not progressing, that again, not making decision, we're not making progress, increases that mental load and the pressure that we feel over time.
So let's get some helpful tips for people because we've talked about all the kind of pitfalls, but what are we going to do about this? Have we covered that in the previous chats, or do we need to put in? I mean, it'd be handy for people, especially if they haven't seen our previous ones. And yeah, by all means, people go back and listen to those. But what are our tips today?
I, I'm really tempted to just pull out the Nike slogan, just do it. You know, I think that's what it boils down to sometimes is it might be uncomfortable, it might be difficult, it might, all these other things. Our emotions might get involved and we might be trying to talk ourselves out of it. But I think sometimes we just need to bite the proverbial bullet and just get on and get it done, regardless of how we feel, because we know it's the right thing for us or others, as the case may be. That's the thing that we need to do. So just
Well,
do it.
there could be a reason for that because there is a school of thought that says, you know what, at the end of the day, you're kind of going to head where you're heading. And yes, you might, by making a decision, you might miss opportunities on this one, but what you miss there, you gain here. And so the school of thought is that we kind of always end up eventually, it's almost a sliding doors, you end up eventually at the same place, and it doesn't really matter which route you take. So, I go out and I do a lot of walks and, there is a choice. Should we go right or shall we go left? And you know what? Sometimes at the end of the day, it doesn't matter which way we went because we still had a good walk. We still ended up where we needed to or got what we needed from it. And I know a walk is very different. It's not like a major thing in life, but let's make it more major. Should I go to university and do that degree or should I go out to work first? Quite often, you're sort of going to end up at the same place anyway. It's just a different route, but what happens in life is kind of the same at the end of the day. And if you have that view or you want to borrow that view, it will take the pressure off you a little bit.
Yeah, I think you're right to an extent. Uh, there's, I agree. We're going to end up, and if we're going for a walk, there are certain things that fate, predestination, I suppose, can come into it to a certain extent. But sometimes the thing we don't do doesn't lead us to the path that we desire. And maybe that's more to the point, I suppose. If we want a certain thing, sometimes we just have to go out and get it for ourselves, because people, we generally speaking, we're not just handed the thing we want. We have to go and get it. And if we
Well, we
want
have
it,
to take some action. I think that's the long and short of it. And I think maybe that's what you're saying with the bite the bullet, the Nike, is just take some action, because you can course correct. And
absolutely.
it's easier to course correct once you've started. So get going, and then you can course correct. When you're not moving, it's so much harder to change direction. So just start and then change as you go. And we're quite feeling people, okay? Humans are quite feeling. So you kind of feel your way as you do it, rather than trying to logic in your head and make hard and fast decisions.
Yeah, absolutely. And the path is really smooth, and it's almost never straight. There will be pitfalls and traps and all those sorts of things. And it's not about being perfect. It's about keeping on keeping on moving forward in life, forward towards a goal, growth, whatever it is that your journey is right now. It's just keep going, take action, make decisions, and get what you can. Squeeze that lemon and get as much juice out of this lemon we call life as you possibly can.
All right, so that's our tip for today. It's as simple as that. It's just pick one, heads or tails, and just, if there's two choices, but just pick one. Just do something.
Well, I think there's always two choices. There's either do the thing or not do the thing.
Well, sometimes it can be a list, so you're just still going to just have to pick one.
Yeah,
Just
you are.
pick one, eeny, meeny, miny, mo, whatever way you want to do it, and just do it. There we are. Thank you for listening, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks for being with us today on Chaos, Courage and Coffee. Remember, you're not alone, and you don't have to figure it all out at once. What part of today's conversation stood out for you?
This podcast is about showing up in the mess, not waiting until it's all sorted out. If today helped, share it with someone else who might need it too.
And if you're navigating your own version of chaos, we'd love to hear about it. Leave a comment, message us, or join the conversation.
We'll be back soon with more honest talk, less pressure, and just enough courage to get through whatever's next.
See you next time on Chaos, Courage and Coffee.